Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with the People of Sam. I am Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on the Clocktower and get their perspective of the game. Joining us for this week's episode is Chris. Chris, thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for having me and for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. We like to get a kind of variety of perspectives. And you're somebody who I know has played mainly in person. You play in some of my local games and other people's local games. So I'm excited to do this one. But to start out, you picked out the script Hide and Seek. We've sent out some characters. You drew the Preacher token. So if it was night one, you'd pick a player. Which player here would you pick? Which is basically just picking a seat number.
Seat 7.
Seat 7. All right, that doesn't really do anything for the interview, I guess, but you'll find out then whether or not you picked a minion, I guess.
Sounds great. Okay.
So with that said, though, as a preacher, what would you like to claim? What would you claim if we were talking right away on day one?
So this was a first time role for me. So I'd probably prefer to, if I were to hard claim with someone, if I got some, I'd maybe go Raven's Keeper, which for anyone who's played with me is something I wouldn't hard claim, so that's why I'm a little bit concerned about how that might go. That's if I had to pick one at this exact moment, that's what I'd go with.
All right. So how and when did you discover Blood on the Clocktower?
So my first game, Blood on the Clocktower, was April of 2023. It was at a local weekend-long convention in this area, and I had signed up for one game among many other games just to try it because I have played other social deduction games, and I kept some of my other appointments, but by the end of that weekend I'd played 6 games. And now I try to, anytime there's something in the area to play in person, I do my best to join that.
Each year, this year and last year, I've helped run those games, and we saw a lot of people over and over throughout the weekend. I know one gentleman this year. I don't know that he never played the game before, and I don't think he left the Blood on the Clocktower area the whole weekend.
That sounds accurate.
Yeah. Do you remember what your very first game was like and how that went throughout the weekend?
So what's interesting is that I don't remember which character I was. I remember that I was on the good team. I remember that my spouse was on the evil team, and that was just purely social read that I was able to get the minion quickly from that. And I do remember a specific person like in the group who was willing to, they had a night one role, but was willing to like be helpful in the first thing to try to understand some of the mechanics to the game, and so that was helpful. But interestingly, from most games, I remember what my character was and if we won or not. And that first one, I do not recall either.
That's funny. So it sounds like you were hooked pretty much right away. What hooked you to the game that kept you coming back over and over?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I've heard, from many other people that enjoy this game, or especially other social deduction games, that it eliminates some of the things that I didn't care for as much in other games. Primarily that there's something for you to do this in the entirety of this game, rather than when you die, and in a couple of games there's maybe a chance, depending on what you are, but in this game that you're still completely viable for the entire game, and that your roles aren't revealed immediately, so you don't know for certain anything until the end of the game, those types of components. And that there did seem to be in this one a lot more, because each individual role is unique, and that creates a lot of different abilities, and there's a lot of different things to try to figure out mechanically or what's going on in the game related to abilities as well as the social components. So there's just a lot more layers to this game. So yeah, just makes it a lot of fun.
Do you have an estimate about how many games you played so far?
Yeah, so to give more context, so I have played mostly online. So there have been, mostly in person. There have been 4 events that were like weekend long events or day long events. And so from those 4 events, I've probably played approximately 30 games just at those 4 events. And then there's been maybe 3 or 4 other times in person where we played 2 or 3 games. And I've played a total of 4 games online. So maybe like approximately 40 total games, and 90% of those have been in person.
And how often do you get to play right now?
Um, well, fortunately, since the last time that we were able to have that same convention in April 2024, there was kind of a new group of players and kind of resurgence of interest. And right after the 2023, there was a attempt to get like a monthly in person game going, and it started and then kind of fell a little bit, and now that's going monthly, so I get to play at least once a month. Right now, the last 2 months I've gotten to play twice a month, so I'm hoping that maybe I'll get to do at least that. And I'm finally starting to feel ready to maybe try online again in some beginner friendly like in base scripts again. So hopefully that can increase, and I'll see how I can fit with the online community.
And I don't mind plugging 2 different Discord servers that are, in my opinion, very particularly beginner friendly. You have the Grimoire, and I think you probably know at least a few people who help run that. Bryant, for example. Then Grim Scenarios is another good a good server for that.
I'm not in that one, so
yeah. For you and for anybody else watching, like I said, for my, I love my own group obviously, but I have limited time on how I can. I'm mostly one main operation, and my games are just usually more for experienced players. It doesn't mean if you're new you can't play, but it's just not quite as beginner friendly as I would hope for a beginner player.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching your games, and that's actually the first groups I tried. The first 2 games I tried were in your games where they were base 3, and it's not that I didn't enjoy, but it was clear to me that the other people had to play like several hundred games, and I'm playing like 5 and don't know, and I like made my token go away on the first, and I didn't even know what my character was. Like,
oh, no.
And it was just one of those. I'm like, when I get more experience, this would be great. But right now, I probably need to find something that's more matches like my own experience level.
Yeah. So when you sit down for a game, you're about to draw your token. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Are you looking at the script, or are you just kind of feeling things out?
I'm typically looking at the script. I'm thinking about it. I've now moved away. When I first started, I was like, my 2 main things was I hope I get blue, and I hope I get a role I understand, or like I get an easy role. I'm finally now to a point where I'm like, I hope I actually get a role I haven't had before, so that I can understand a little bit better, gain a little bit more experience. And I enjoy. I can enjoy being the demon. I think as many people prefer, there's less pressure with the minion. So, it's not that I'm necessarily hoping for blue as much anymore as I'm hoping for something new.
How do you feel about the outsider role in this game? Because as you get different player counts, it's a way to add a good player, but with a sort of a negative ability. How do you feel that fits in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I like it in that it's a twist. It's something that's unique, I think, to this game. I am just now getting to where I feel like I can try to figure out how to make those like have some utility in those roles instead of just feeling it. And I can't say that I felt that way for all of them. Like, I more recently had a first time experience being the goon, and I was trying to do I go with it? Like, I try to be good. I try to be like, I don't know, like how to be. So there's still a few that I kind of like, how do I be useful with this, where or others I kind of start to feel like that. So I think that'll come with more time too, and getting to experience those roles and try new things with those roles. But just as a general overall premise and concept, I think it's good for the game.
Right. And I can tell you too, if I've known people who's played like 1,000 games who are still, there's characters they've never been. There's interactions and strategies that they're still trying to work out. And I feel like it's part of the fun of the game is it is absolutely. So there's so much to it, even within a script like Trouble Brewing, which is your beginner script. There's just so much to explore there, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's part of the replayability because all the people are going to be different. You might want to try something different, and so I'm sure I will have it equally as much fun at like 5,000 games or something as 5 games.
Yeah. And I'm guessing most of your games so far have been probably Trouble Brewing.
They have. I actually picked this script because so my in my most games have been Trouble Brewing, but the very first convention, the third game and the fifth game were both this script hide and seek, and in both of them I was the damsel. So I definitely was sweating and suffering for most of the games. And I really wanted to pick this script just so that I would hopefully be something other than the damsel. I thought that would be funny, and to see a couple other roles. But I've had a fair mix. Interestingly, I think it's Trouble Blurring would be the most, but then a homebrew or custom script would probably be the second most different custom scripts. But I've actually probably played different custom scripts more than S&V or BMR as well.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I myself and many others always recommend trying to stick with the base scripts because that is helps you get those fundamentals. Damsel, for example, is really tough on on a brand new player. It's even kind of tough for if people who are more experienced but haven't yet played with it. Yeah, the strategies that make that work best is could be a whole other discussion. But yeah, so that is interesting. How many times do you have an idea of how many times you played Bad Moon Rising and Sex and Violets?
I think now with the most recent in person where it was like 3 S&V in a row, that maybe I'm somewhere between like 5 and 10 of that now. But I think Bad Moon I've only played like 2 or 3 times, so I still feel like a complete novice for that script for the most part.
Funny enough, I know one of those Bad Moon Rising games we played on. Not only were we were sitting right next to each other, and also we were both on the evil team. And
Yes.
I do like telling that story because it is, I don't know, it's 15, 16 players. It was a pretty large game.
It's a large game.
And it started at like 11 o'clock at night. And, Bad Moon Rising is tricky to storytell, especially in that big of a game because, many people don't like Bad Moon Rising because it goes so long. I always try to keep my games under 2 hours. Long story short, because of Accordier picking you, who was the Poe, and some other circumstances, we got to probably about 12:45, and there was still like 11 people alive or something like that.
Yeah, people are not dying.
Yeah, no deaths at night. So, long story short, I'm the mastermind. You're bluffing as a gossip, and it's almost 1 a.m. and everybody's kind of getting to, like, okay, we don't really want this to go that way. So I'm like, I decide, you know what? Nobody's dying at night. I'm going to throw my demon under the bus and try to get a mastermind wind. And I did that. I said, Chris is claiming something that seems suspicious with no deaths at night. We get you executed. Now there's no demons, so there's no deaths at night. But because there had been no deaths at night for so many nights in a row, nobody was thinking Mastermind Day. Town executes the good goon to lock them in as good. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to run to the bathroom just really quick. And the storyteller was like, well, before you do that, you might want to wait because the game's over.
Yeah. And what's funny was about when I realized that I was and I could not kill anyone, I wanted that became the plan that I wanted to do. I wanted to be executed to do it, but I didn't want to. There was a reason. There was something I can't recall what the issue was where I was concerned about going back to speak directly to you, as suspicious. But I was glad that we ended up being of the same mind.
Yeah, well, and it's funny too because we were literally sitting right next to each other. I don't know why we didn't just talk about it, but you and I both thought the same thing, so it worked out. So from your very few playthroughs of Bad Moon Rising, what do you think about that script so far?
I'm really confused by it, or like
That's normal.
Other extra mechanical pieces of why things are happening. And in addition to being mostly different characters than I've gotten some familiarity with, it's just one of those like I feel like I'm ready to play it now and want that experience to get that one. And at the same time, that's the one where most of the time, or the couple times that I've gotten to play it, other than the time that I was supposed to be directing things, at least somewhat for being the demon, that I was like, "What is happening? I don't know what's happening. Let me try to figure this out." But feeling, it was much harder. I didn't feel like I was actually understanding enough of the mechanics to put the pieces together the way I am able to now be able to do in a couple of the other scripts.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for sure, and that's why Trouble Brewing is the one that's best to start with. Because not to say that there's no complexity in it, but it's at least more easily understandable.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more straightforward. I was glad that was when I sat down that was the first one that was played, because I at least could just read the roles and understand like what probably at least half of them, maybe more than that, meant. Whereas I think some of the others is confusing.
Yeah,
and I'm sure others have had this experience, but I didn't understand like the difference between player and character and a couple other things where you make some mistakes in scripts related to that.
Yeah.
At the beginning of those two.
So with your few plays of Sex and Violets, how do you feel about that script?
So my first experience with SNV was I was the Snake Charmer. Who
I ran that game.
Yep, on the second day, got the demon and killed my one minion, the poisoner. Not knowing, of course, but that's what I did. And
so this was Sex and Violets. So they were, I think they were the Sarah Novus, I believe.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, not the poison.
Yeah.
Madness. And so, the fact that that game went to a final three, and knowing what I know now, I totally would have made other choices. I would have killed myself for that, with the thing for an outsiders. There were still two outsiders and me as the final three, so I definitely would have. But not understanding everything, then I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, can I just make this game fun and like try to survive a little ways? But it was chaos that I wasn't expecting for a first game, I guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a really good introduction because you just had to like totally go with it for that. So now that I've gotten to play it a couple more times, I feel like it's really fun. Like that would probably be where I would want to start in a day instead of TB. Now, of course, I really like TB2. I think it's really well balanced or whatnot. But I find that one really interesting. Has a good mix of mechanical things that you can understand. So I don't know. I just really, that's probably right now of the base the favorite one.
Okay, yeah, that's I like Sex and Violets. A lot of in-person groups have I don't know if you call it an issue per se, but if you have a new player, you want to have Trouble Brewing. If you're doing a meetup once a month, most months you're going to have a new player. So a lot of groups end up kind of sticking with Trouble Brewing, and a lot of the people who keep playing week after week or month after month get kind of tired of it and want to play something else. So it's a rough. It can be rough trying to get in some experience with the intermediate scripts.
Yeah, no, and I could play TB, Trouble Brewing every time too, as we're in this group, and still be happy and have a great time. So I'm hoping they're starting to be. That's one thing in this group, the in-person group, where there are some familiar faces or repeat faces, and they're getting more and more frequent. So hopefully the group continues to grow, and there can be that. I know one time that even was enough for like two groups. So maybe if wanted to, some people could play TB and some people could play something else. So
yeah. And then one of the things Sex and Violets adds is the concept of madness. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. I don't know if you've ever been mad been chosen to be mad or anything, but I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I have. I did not understand it, and one of the first games with madness, and I felt really dumb afterwards when I was like, I think we should kill this person. They're like saying there's some role like here in the fourth day they haven't said before, and I didn't get it like that. Now that would be obvious, like that's why they're doing it. But so I think it's just another one of those unique elements to this particular game that a lot don't have, that makes the game a lot more fun, a lot more interesting. So I like it.
Yeah, and it's good to insert like misinformation too in a different way that's not just drunkenness and poisoning. So it's interesting to see how it plays out. It's also interesting to see how it more says you get more experienced. I'll tell you, in some of the games that I've been running, there's been an increasing kind of strategy of either being the Cerenovus or making your a Cerenovus on your team making you mad as anything, and then claiming to be mutant and get executed. Uh, but that's also being done enough that people are not trusting that move.
Starting
So,
to know that. Yeah. Yeah.
For me, that's part of the fun of playing this game is like that just rotating meta. Even in Trouble Brewing, if you're a Raven Keeper, well, your strategy for that's probably claim Empath or Fortune Teller, something powerful that'll get you killed at night. Once you do that enough, people's like, oh, he's claiming Fortune Teller. He might actually be the Raven Keeper, and it just, I don't know. It's a fun rotating meta.
It's exactly it. That's why I normally get 2s or 3s and try to have this a mix, and I try to not choose the same things each time so that there's a lack of pattern in play, and so hopefully that's helpful. I mean, within the and in terms of people not being able to guess right away what I am if I don't want them to. But the area that I'm still working on is figuring out when to trust whom and when I should just go ahead and be forthright with the role. And I'm sure everybody works through that and gets it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, overall, I mean, it's fun. And actually, I think for the game, I know you asked me the very first question to make it, but I do still maybe have a slight preference for blue, and I actually think now I'm starting to have it more because apparently in the group, and it's mostly people with the same level of experience, but now they have a hard time believing me when I'm blue because apparently I've done a good job when I'm red, and so I'm like, let me be blue more, and I start to trust me again. Maybe.
Yeah. So. Some people just end up going through, like, once you get some really good evil games, people just that red flag goes off no matter what, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get through that.
Yeah.
Of characters that you've been so far, are there any that stand out that you have particularly enjoyed?
And I tend to like the ones that gain information each night. I mean, of course, like, who doesn't want to have something that has more? I don't necessarily think that it means more power, but just more action, I guess, and more to put together. So, and then try to figure out if something unique was going on for a certain night or multiple nights or whatnot. So, for TD that tends to be more empath or fortune teller or something like that. But I really can't. I don't think there's been any role that I've had that I didn't enjoy. So I'm good with all slash any.
Yeah, sounds good. Are there any characters that you haven't been that you really want to try? You hope to pull that token.
Because of the games that we've played, I actually I'm really interested in getting to be some of the other minions and demons beyond what's on the base groups, because some of them I watched a couple of the games or see some of them released, and the good characters are interesting too, but I don't know, something about those in particular, just seeing how they work and getting to be part of that chaos seems really fun. So I would like to have some more experience doing that in particular.
Oh, sounds good. All right. Well, I do like going over asking about some divisive characters. You may or may not be familiar with these. Most of these you probably haven't at least played with. But I am curious if you what your thoughts might be,
Sure.
If you have any at all. The first one I know you have played because you already talked about this. But I do like asking about Snake Charmer because that is divisive for at least some people. So what were your thoughts about Snake Charmer?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge as a new player to figure out Snake Charmer, but I think that's the case for a few different roles, and it wasn't like so bad that I was like, oh gosh, put me off to the script or anything like that. And in general, especially now that I understand that script a little bit more, I love that character is a possibility. I do have an understanding that there's kind of like a house rule or whatnot for people if you choose the demon the very first night, and that makes sense to me, but as someone who chose the second night and also killed my one minion and still made, like, I think it can still be fun, right? And then you're just like, wow, look how, even if you don't win, how far did I make it, or what I was able to do with so little. Like, that's kind of fun and cool too. So I am pro Snake Charmer.
All right, sounds good. The next question is about Poppy Grower. Poppy Grower is townsfolk. Evil doesn't learn each other, and then if the Poppy Grower dies, evil do learn each other, or minions and demons do anyway. So how do you feel about Poppy Grower?
I have been in one like custom home game that had a poppy grower, and I was on the good team for that game, so that's great. Yeah, I haven't been that role. It seems like it's really powerful. I could see where maybe in certain situations where it might feel like it was overpowered potentially. I've only had one game with it. I'm sure on the evil team, I probably wouldn't like it as much, but kind of like the chaos that can happen with the others. It's fun to see what happens, and when you feel like okay, I've been given even more of a challenge. If I do win, that's great, and if I don't, it's still gonna be fun. So let's go.
Yeah, it's a bit of its own mini game for evil, and it probably is one of the most powerful game or characters in the game. Usually, you want to set up your town as a storyteller to kind of have like a weaker town to kind of counteract it, but yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure. What are your thoughts, if you're familiar with it, of Atheist?
So I've heard about atheist games. I haven't played in an atheist game. That's one of the things I want to do. Is like I have a game saved in my like watch for later to just see, a game that just to see what it's actually like. So I feel like I might not be ready for that yet, or at the very least should watch a couple to have like any clue.
Yeah,
But from my understanding, it's something that seems to be just really reliant on the storyteller ability to run the game. But I'm hoping that in the future I get a chance to try it out.
yeah, it's a tricky one, and really, ideally, as a relatively new player, you don't want to be coming across it yet. Some people don't necessarily feel the same way, but it's a tricky one. Some storytellers, to be frank, run it very much in a not fun way. But some people enjoy it and some people don't, and yeah, both are good. There's a lot of different ways to run it too. Some people, patters, for example, will run just like crazy games that just silliness from start to finish. My strategy is usually to more make it a puzzle, make it so it doesn't look like an atheist game at first. But the thing with atheists is most people kind of figure out that it's an atheist. And as that starts happening, I make the game more sillier and more obvious that it's atheist. And everybody usually has fun with it, and that's always enjoyable.
Like it would be fun.
How familiar are you with Heretic?
So I know my understanding of that is that basically revert like the win condition, the win loss win. Which so basically my feelings toward Heretic is I don't feel ready to be the heretic. Please don't make me heretic because other than like going to confirmed townsperson or almost confirmed townsperson, like that would be like my only known possible strategy, and maybe that would work out. No, I think again, as you can probably see, my overall philosophy is like the point is to have fun and try new things and see how they work. And like, I might totally not understand it, and that'll actually, for me, that actually will make me want to do it more, so I can try to start understanding at least some parts of it. So, overall, great. Yet another character to have fun with at some point, but and it's totally cool if it's in my game, but don't let it be me.
Yeah. It's funny enough that it kind of is what you want your strategy to be as heretic, is to find somebody confirmed or somebody that you think you can trust is good, because you kind of need that information to spread, but also hopefully not get to the wrong people who can just kind of end the game and win it for evil. It's a tricky one. And then one more character, you might have heard of this one, Legion.
So I've heard it, and I've heard people reference Legion games, but I haven't watched it. I don't understand what it is, so I don't have an opinion other than probably just like, okay, cool, it's another version that I hope to get to eventually, but I don't know what it is really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Legion's basically, you basically invert or reverse the good and evil team, so there's only a handful of good people and almost everybody else is an evil Legion. And it makes it kind of a performative thing for Legion, because Legion wants to trick the good players into thinking that it's not Legion, and then executions only go through if a good player votes on it. you kind of have to trick a good player into executing another good player, and yeah, it really changes the game. Like with most of these characters, some people are cool with it, some just aren't really a fan. Um, but yeah, fair enough. All right, so one last question for you. So, looking at the script here from Hide and Seek, which character would you like to be in real life?
Hmm. Well, I, yeah, they all have interesting things. There's a few. I'll actually, I'll go with what's on it's Sunday. I'll go with what's on the screen. I'll go with preacher's not a bad thing to be able to. I don't know that I would use it in the same way, or rooting out rooting out true real evil would be a nice thing to do to be able to prevent. So yeah, I'll go with that.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. It's been fun. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And then thank you all for watching this week of Hard Claim. We'll be back next week with another episode and another guest. See you next time.